If they're not showing up to their wife authentically, to their work authentically, to themselves authentically,
they realize it's all an illusion, and they've been chasing it for what? They don't even know.
And they're so focused on what they think they need to do and not focused on what they really need to do to live a more full life.
And the mental narrative goes up, you're a failure, you're a loss, you're a loser, you're a fuck up, whatever it is. And so they stay in that loop, and they continue to grind themselves to death, literally to death, or they inevitably have a collapse. Their wife loses, they lose hundreds of thousands of dollars.
There's a lot of men and women out there that would love to blame somebody.
Who told them that? What was their prerogative? Why did they do that? There's always a reason, and people say they're free thinkers and they're free of the matrix all the damn time, but then they don't actually look at their lives. Why am I even having this choice in my mind right now, and why am I deciding to act upon it blindly? It actually expands the field around us. So when we collect, even a group of like 5 to 10 of us, has a couple mile radius. There's less people, but the quality of those beings is far superior, and it actually helps elevate the entire energy around the people that we could collect it with.
Hey, and welcome to the Chad Peterson Show. You guys know that I bring good guests to you that have a good story, they have a good background, something you can learn from. And I only bring guests on that have something valuable for you to listen to, and today is no exception. So today I am with Arielle Ziegler, and I met Arielle off my social. And what I noticed about Arielle is that she has a different way of looking at things. When you go to your school, when you go to the doctor, when you go to church, are you really getting the help that you need? Or are the people that were trained by the very systems that we're surrounded by, are they adequate enough to help you, or are they not? And I would suggest that people like Arielle have the answers for you. I would suggest that you follow Arielle, and after today, you might know what I mean. So welcome to the show, Arielle.
Thank you for having me, Chad.
Yeah, so, whenever I first recognized you, you first started arguing with me with some things that I was talking about. Yeah. And you noticed that I was a driver, and that I'm driven, and that I work a lot, and you at first at least believed that maybe I suffer from burnout, or that I'm I don't know what it was. Do you remember what that was?
I do remember. You made a comment about hustle and grind and all that, and for me, I've learned over time. You always want to ask the definition of what someone means by that, right? Because the majority of the public use hustle grind as a disconnection technique. For you, it's from a place of it's from alignment and passion, right? But the majority of the public, as we're probably going to get into, use this as a means of actually disconnection, because they've been indoctrinated to believe that this is what they want, when you obviously have realized that's not the case. But that was what we were discussing. And then I realized, I think it was like three or four comments in, that like, no, this is from a place of alignment, which is, it happens, but it's very rare.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I do grind and I do hustle, but it's not for grinding and hustling's sake. I come in here because I enjoy what I do. I have a good time with what I do. I laugh and joke and have a good time all day. But I do work 7 days a week, and other people would say that that's too much, that I'm too focused on that. But for me, I don't know what else to do. I mean, I'm not going to play video games. I'm not going to go hang out at social hour at the bar. You can only hike and lift so much. You can only do a hobby so much. And if you love what you do, then it doesn't really feel like work.
Agreed.
And that's what you were thinking you were saying, but we got past that. So that's cool. So a couple things that I've noticed about you is you have a real good way of understanding what's going on underneath the surface. And a lot of people come to you and they think they're talking about this problem in their life or whatever, but then you dig a little bit deeper underneath the surface. What are you typically finding?
99% of the time, and we've had these conversations before, obviously, but 99% of the time it is disconnection, right? Like you were saying in the beginning, we are indoctrinated to believe we want X, Y, Z. We think that we want, the house, the boat, all those different things, and we may actually want them, but the sensation and the emotion and what we're actually seeking is fulfillment, happiness, joy, all those different things. And quite often these people are disconnected. They're told they want one thing and they end up actually wanting something entirely different. They're told by their parents, their doctors, their coaches, their mentors, whatever. And it's that constant disconnection and identification with the mental narrative that has them lose connection with who they actually are.
Yeah. Okay. So it's like they want certain things and they're coming to you and they're frustrated about living a life that they want.
Hmm.
But then you dig underneath that and like, what are some of the ugly things that are living underneath them? They're not going to tell you, right? You have to dig and find it. What are people really struggling with out there?
Lack of self-worth, lack of acceptance for who they actually are, they don't love themselves, right? And to be fair, a lot of that is we are conditioned from a very early age, right? When we're babies, we're this neutral slate. We come into the world, we all have these gene mutations. Epidemiology actually proves that curses are real. Everything that our parents have not dealt with gets passed on to us. So some would call it karma, some call it epidemiology, whatever it may be. And what happens is these babies are neutral slates, and then as children, we are conditioned by our parents. And if our parents have not dealt with certain things, and if they don't know how to reward us unconditionally with love, worth, and acceptance, it's something we seek outside ourselves to our dying day, unless we consciously address it as adults.
Yeah. And through that, all sorts of people seek unhealthy means
Yes.
to cope, right?
Yes.
And when we talk about addiction, historically, we've talked about alcohol, we've talked about drugs, and drugs is still there. I mean, it's obviously there. In fact, I had a guest on the podcast maybe 3 or 4 or 5 months ago, and him and I were just talking in the car, and I asked him what he thought it was, and he thought that it was crack and then methamphetamine. He said those two things broke the country. So back in the 80s or 90s, it was crack. And then, of course, in our late years here, last 15 years, it's been methamphetamine, 20 years. And I think he's right, because if you look at the cities, they're just broken. I mean, they're just,
Yep.
A lot of cities that were once thriving, they're just completely broken. It has to be the drugs. But obviously, alcohol and addiction to drugs is the first thing, but what are the kind of things are you seeing that people find themselves busy with or addicted to that also distracts them from being connected to self?
Anything can be a distraction. Let's first get that. It's never what we're doing. It's always where we're coming from and doing it. Are we using this as an avoidance mechanism, or are we using this because we enjoy using it, or because we know it's part of the path? But I would see the biggest ones that aren't labeled as actual addictions, but are social media, obviously pornography, even business owning, chasing money, all those different things. It depends on where you're coming from. But if you are allowing that thing, you're chasing it, and you're not allowing yourself to actually sit back and see where is this drive coming from, then it is an addiction. And if you are placing your worth and your fulfillment and all of your acceptance into something outside yourself, by definition, you are codependent upon it, and it is an addiction of sorts.
Yeah, for sure. And so this, what I've never understood out of all those you just mentioned is porn addiction. Is that really a thing?
100%. Yeah. A lot of men, they feel like they're not seen, they're not heard, they're not loved, or they just don't give their wives or partners intimacy. So, of course, if you're not going to show up as you are, you're not going to receive the thing that you're actually seeking. So it's easy to hide within pornography, 100%.
Right, but isn't it a porn? Okay, let's just say that I were to jack off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I nut and I'm done and whatever. Like, how fast? If you're addicted to porn, how fast are you going back to it? Like, are you talking about like an addiction? Like you can't put it down?
Correct. There was one gentleman I remember reading about on a book. I'll find the book and I'll send it to you if you want. Where he literally made a contraption machine where it would jack him off when his hands started to become like atrophied, and he was, yes, it was horrible, and he was living off of government assistance, but that's literally became an addiction, and he didn't know how to stop.
Bro,
Yeah.
really? Okay, so it's not that they're just turning to porn.
No, it's
Because I don't like porn. Number one, when I'm with a woman, I like to be with her. I like to smell her. I like to, like the whole thing. Okay,
Yeah,
like
the whole
everything.
experience.
So for me, porn is weird anyway.
Yep.
But to hear that it's an addiction is even way more strange.
Well, because addiction by definition is hiding, right? So, and we also have this shame when we're hiding in addiction, because addiction is so vilified by society. So you have the addiction itself, and then you have the shame of society on top of that. And so they hide from it and they don't allow it to come forth, but they're still seeking, because of that social, your brain body always wants a balance of pain and pleasure. So if you're shaming yourself, and that's a very, very painful thing, and you believe all these different thoughts of the mind that are driving you to the pleasure in the first place, it's going to be this vicious yo-yo cycle to be able to balance the pain pleasure within your body. And that's what our dopamine centers are. That is the nervous system. That's all those different things.
Yeah, so what are people doing to their dopamine when they're addicted to their phones or they're addicted to whatever else? What kind of things affect that brain chemistry?
So our gut modulates about 50% of our dopamine. And old school dopamine, you work out, you get goals, you get accomplishments, you get number one in the class, whatever it may be. That's how we used to get dopamine. The problem with social media, with any addiction like that, is it's very quick. So what happens is our brain always wants the shortest loop from A to B. So if it sees, oh, I'm able to get dopamine this way instead of this really hard thing, it conditions itself to go only for these shorter loops. And that's where addiction sets in, is your brain just wants this little this little hit of, and think dopamine is, it's almost like a shot put, like say I throw something and that's the marker. And we have this expectation of dopamine. If you're like, okay, that's what it's going to feel like, and then you reach it, your brain's like, oh, I got that dopamine, right? It's almost like what's it called? Like a marker of sorts. If you don't hit that marker, you get what we call a dopamine deficit. And this is, you see in goals, outcomes, expectations. If you don't get that goal/outcome, you get a deficit, and that's where depression onsets. Mm-hmm. So, but it's very easy. You don't have to do much to watch pornography and scroll on your phone. And then it shortens your brain circuitry, which further keeps you in the cycle.
Yeah, and it's an epidemic now.
100%.
It's like, it would be preposterous to sit here and say, what's worse, an alcohol and a methamphetamine addiction or a cell phone addiction? And I would argue that they might be pretty close.
100%. I mean, I work with one time a week, I do outside contract work at an actual detox facility. And I'm like, at least you guys, I told them all the time, at least you guys admit you have a problem. The majority of the public won't ever even admit that they have a problem, and they're disconnected. And that's why we have people who aren't doing jobs. They can't show up. They can't they play on video games. They DoorDash everything. We have become a society of complacency and convenience. Mm-hmm. And it's because I believe that there's a grander overarching view, and this was all masterfully created, because a distracted population is a easily manipulated population.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's always hard to have those conversations because you don't know who they are. I mean, we kind of do, right? We kind of do, but we don't know for sure.
Exactly.
But we do know that the way that we're living in today's times, and we know that it's not good for us. We know that the constant addiction to our cell phone, we know the cheap dopamine hits is what you're talking about, getting cheap dopamine hits versus, like you said, if you work out, you're in good shape. You work hard at work, you get a promotion, or you start your own business and it works, and or you invest real time into real friendships, and that friendship ends up becoming something that's worthwhile. Those are all things that are more the long way around the bend. Correct. To get the dopamine and other things too, like oxytocin, phenylethylamine, all sorts of them. So it's not just dopamine. That's just one hormone or one chemical in the brain, rather. But I would say that, how old are you?
34.
34. Okay. So I think it's one thing for me as a hardcore Gen Xer. Mm-hmm. I was in the thick of Gen X, no seatbelts, riding in the back of pickup trucks, working until the sun came down when I was a kid, riding bikes,
I had some of that.
doing stupid shit that you should never do.
Yep.
Right? For me, I can still differentiate between what it should be and what it is. Mm-hmm. But for people like my son, for people my son's age at 22, 21, they didn't grow up then. They don't know. And so they might only know the quick fix to dopamine.
Correct.
Right. So they don't know the other side of it. And it's such a weird conversation, because how do you explain to the younger generation something that they cannot see?
Well, and we also have to take into account the fact that this younger generation, their brains are also not the same as ours, because during that age, that when you were a kid, and when I was that age as well, because I had similar experiences, our brains had to still work, right? We're still in a place of neuroplasticity and maturation because of hormones and endocrine and all that. They don't even have that, because the stimulus isn't even there for the majority, right? I would venture to say certain, old town boys in the Midwest still have some of that ethic, but the majority of the public, especially in America, their brains never even develop those pathways. Mm-hmm. So it's very difficult, and it's not impossible. I've worked with a handful of young individuals, but it takes a certain amount of pain to realize this isn't working anymore, and I need to change.
Yeah, so pain is the only way to change.
Yep.
It really is. I mean, people think they're going to pleasure their way to
Nope.
change. You're going to pain your way to change.
A bunch of wise sages across the the esoteric Eastern philosophy say like 90% of the time it is suffering. It is suffering that leads to it. 10% of the time it is curiosity.
Yeah.
But that is just not the majority. We unfortunately learn very hard.
Yeah, and so Buddha talked about suffering. Buddha's whole journey
Yep.
was about suffering, and he chose suffering. And his life, as much as Jesus has studied, I think it's equally, if not more important, to study Buddha, because
100%.
we're all in pain, we're all suffering, and we all don't want to. And Buddha was saying, no, suffering is the way. Get through it.
Yes.
You got to go through it to get through it.
Correct.
Right?
And I would say that's synonymous with what I say, right? The obstacle, I mean, the Stoics say the obstacle is the way. I say triggers are the way, because a trigger, an inflammatory response within your brain-body connection, is saying literally, this thing has not been processed. You went through this pain and you just decided to push it away because maybe you had to survive. Sometimes it's just, I don't want to feel that right now. But that thing right there is literally creating a perceptual avoidance mechanism. The trigger is showing you, oh, I've not processed this. Think of it as like a cookie in the cookie catch on your computer. What happens when a bunch of like cookies and a bunch of tabs are open on your browser history? Eventually the system collapses and the computer shuts down. And that's what we see the majority of the public in right now, is they have all these experiences. They're just pushing down underneath the rug. They're never taught how to regulate or process these things. And then the overstimulation of everything in the world further creates that reactivity that you're noticing everywhere on social media. It is literally a shit show ready to happen.
Absolutely. No, that's very well said. So, in the beginning of the podcast, I mentioned that you have a different way of looking at things, and that maybe the doctors and the facilities that we go to get help, and the institutions that control us, including the churches that are there to guide us, I've never found the answers there, right? So I personally have always seeked the answers. I'm not somebody who just puts his head in the sand. If I've got a problem, if I'm seeing a problem, if I know something internally is bothering me, I'm going to seek the answers. And I'll be damned if I'm going to a doctor or a psych or a psychiatrist for medicine. I'll be damned if I'm doing that. I reach out to people more like you, coaches that understand the biology, the physiology, the spiritual. That's where I get my help. And I believe that so many people are institutionalized and brainwashed to think that doctors have the answers. And you and I know that they don't. So when did you begin to understand that the institutions of our society didn't hold the answers, and that there was a deeper truth? And when did you pursue that?
If I really want to look at my entire, because, as we evolve, we find more in retrospection. I would say I knew who I was until I was about 14, and then I was told to shut up and silence myself, right? And then a lot of trauma. My parents started to go through separation. I got very distracted into the head, right? Got caught in those stories. And so for the next, 7-8 years, I hid. There was a lot of things. I just was trying to survive, move out, all those different things. Then I went to traditional therapy, and every talk therapist I went to was like, okay, well, how do you feel about that? Okay, cool. I remember still one therapist saying on our intake, that was a lot. How old are you? So you're then labeled as broken, right? And I'm like, yeah, but help me, right? And none of them worked. I went to 10 years of therapy, didn't help me. It was honestly, I started to wake up when I was 22, but I would say 2020, when I was forced to face the identity that I'd been running from my own traumas from, was no longer available. I was a trainer for Gold's Gym for 8 years, top in the company. I was like, either we face this or we die. And like you beautifully said last night, one of us did die, right? And I faced that trauma, and I realized that everything I had been told was a lie. The medical system was not here to help me. Therapists, 90% of the time, were even more broken than I was. And I had to find a way to actually create long-term change. I finished up my master's degree in nutrition, went back and got some psych, some neuroscience, and I found out how to actually deal with everything in process. And it's constant refinement, but I would say 2020, honestly.
Yeah, 2020. So did you have a big awakening, or was it more?
Like I said, when I was 22, I started to see like government, politics, all those. When my mom passed away, medical was not good, 100%. But I didn't really realize that I was not the mind fully and completely. I was still kind of negotiating those stories.
Yeah, so mainstream opinion about mental health, mainstream opinion about behavior, emotion, things like that. The mainstream opinions, they're completely inaccurate.
100%.
And let's look at some facts here. Let's look at Look at the DSM-5, I think it is, which is the manual of mental health for psychologists. I highly doubt it anyway, that they even have a section in there about cell phone addiction, about pornography addiction. And so we just came out of an era, I hope we're out of it. We just came out of an era of everybody's a narcissist. That was the last 7 years, I think, something like that. And then if we go back probably 20, 25 years, there was the era that everybody was bipolar, right?
Yes, I remember that one.
So the cultural narrative, the mainstream narrative literally has like 99.5% of people locked in as a narcissist right now. And the fact is that literally by the stats, 0.5%, 1/2% are narcissists. But if you ask 20 people, they're going to say they know 5 narcissists. Okay. It's really by law of numbers just absolutely impossible. But within that probably holds the answer. Within that question probably holds the answer. There's so many people that are disconnected from self. They want something out of life. They're distracted by their cell phone. They're not living the life that they want. They don't have the career they want. They don't have the friends they want. They don't have the material possessions that they want. They don't have the spiritual safety, the spiritual certainty that they want. And so then they behave in ways that are not really who they are.
Which creates the narcissistic tendencies. Correct. Yeah, and narcissism is actually a natural inherent trait. Babies are very narcissistic. They have to be to survive, right? It's a very natural human trait. But what I find, because I was actually raised by a diagnosed narcissist, but even then, it's like, okay, cool. A therapist diagnosed, like, do we really know that this is a subjective? I really hate labels because labels create a lack of ownership. They create a victim mentality. When you have someone who's free form and able to navigate this reality authentically, you don't box them in. But the thing is, people, the government, the powers that be, I'm going on a tangent, don't like things they can't box in. So they create labels to conform, to keep us in these mental bubbles and the narratives, the stories that keep us in these loops. But I would say, honestly, like the people who say that individuals are narcissists quite often are people who are not taking ownership for their own life.
Yeah. I mean, I went to therapy, like real therapy, for about 3 or 4 years. And the guy that I went and saw, his name was Roy.
Okay.
And Roy was, he was no Jordan Peterson, but he was pretty good at explaining how people behave and the various diagnoses that he was taught in school. He was pretty good at that. And I went to therapy for 3 or 4 years, and too much talk therapy, too much repeating what had happened to me. I got tired of it myself, but that's seemingly all he wanted to do. He wanted me to come in, pay him his, I think it was $125 an hour or something like that, to tell him what happened and to tell him how I feel about that. And I got tired of it. I ended up going to see a coach, and that coach did not have the degrees that Roy had. That coach did not have the letters behind his name. He was not on the board of Blue Cross Blue Shield like Roy was. But this guy had done deeper work to understand the deeper reasons behind motivations, fear, the psychology of people, why people do certain things. And it's a holistic approach.
Yep.
And that is actually what really helped me. And I needed the help, and I did it on purpose. When, think about it, I was 24 years old and I was going to counseling every week by choice when all my buddies were burying themselves and everything to distract them.
Yep.
Right. So from that, I guess I want to make the point, or I want to ask you what you think. I think that if you just talk about the problem and talk about the thing that happened to you and you reactivate what happened to you.
The neural pathway.
Yeah. You just keep that feeling alive.
Correct. Well, it's not even the feeling, because the thing is, talk therapy, there are other modalities that can be efficacious, but talk therapy, you can't heal trauma in talk therapy. It is literally impossible.
It's impossible.
It's impossible because the brainwave state, typically, most people who walk into an office, number one, are in what we call high beta brainwave. So your brainwave actually affects your brain's neuroplasticity. If you're stressed out, you're walking in a high beta brainwave, and so you're talking about the problem, which can be great for offloading for the day, but as soon as you go back home or you go into your spouse or you have a work thing happen, you go back into that, and guess what? These triggers are reactivated because the triggers are not stored in the mind, because the Broca's, which is this is why I went back for more neuroscience. The Broca's is a portion of the brain that is activated for intelligible speech. That is shut down during trauma. So you literally can't access it because the trauma is not stored in the intelligible speech. It's stored within the breath and within the body. And this is what the esoterics, the sages, the Eastern philosophy has said for a long time, is the trauma stored within the body, and you must move through it and feel it to process it. But once it's felt, it's felt. You don't have to talk about it anymore. It's done.
Yeah, because if you're still talking about it, it means you're trying to identify what's happened. You have not embraced what actually happened. You have not felt what actually happened. You're trying to think about what happened, and that's not where it's at. And there's that book, The Body Keeps the Score.
Yep, I've read it multiple times.
And it's a good book, although it can get very heady and it can lose you, and it's a long read.
It is.
But the point of it is good.
Yes.
The body keeps the score. The mind doesn't keep the score.
The body does.
The mind can be rational about what happened to the body. In other words, it can think about a thought, but that's only something to then go feel and work through.
Quite often. And quite often the rationalization, what I call it logic bypassing. Sometimes we logic bypass certain experiences and we're like, okay, yeah, no, I understand that, right? But this is where kind of I call it like covert trauma stored within the body, because the brain is like, oh, no, we moved through that, even though mom or dad hit us or whatever it may be. It's like, I understand it now, but they didn't move through the trauma. And that's where it creates this like avoidance mechanism. There are triggers they've still not dealt with, or they end up not owning what they want quite often.
Yeah, so that's a stress response, right?
Yes.
So they're responding to stress, and then so in order to remedy the stress, they go to their head.
Yes, because that's the default, right? Because as soon as you're stressed, your brain goes into fight or flight, subconscious default. And if your subconscious default is on, that's when the mental narrative is loud. And that also means you can't process it. And this is why the nervous system is essential for healing. Down regulation, right? Going into breath work, meditation, somatic practices to release these emotions. And that's when it's fully and completely gone. It's no longer present. And I've seen people's entire body structure changes because they are literally stored within different tissues of the body. I got almost a full inch back in my spine. I still remember my spine like cracking during that huge identity shift in 2020. And I have kyphosis and all that. My old massage therapist came in. She was like, "What did you do?" I was like, "Trauma work."
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So the body holds all of it,
Yes.
and then we go to our head to pretty much avoid it, even though we think that we're processing it.
Yep. Because that's what I think of the mental narrative almost like an organism, right? What is the function of an organism? To keep itself valid, right? An animal will fight back tooth, nail, and claw to survive. And that's what the brain is doing. But to be fair, it's doing it to keep you in the illusion of safety, because the mind only knows past experiences and experiences it's observed from other people. So what it does is if there's a threat response, it projects all of its information it has from the back end and other information it's gathered to whatever the perceived threat is in front of it. So it's trying to keep you safe, but the conscious higher version of you knows there's more. So this goes to stepping outside of that mental narrative and actually being able to objectively assess what's going on to change the span of your life.
Right. So the emotional blocks, the emotional set point, let's say, the emotional set point that somebody feels on a regular basis. Like if you were to ask some people, how do you feel? Well, if you ask them on Monday how they feel, it's the same thing as if you talk to them on Friday on how they feel. They always have a set point. Some people are more happy. Some people are more sad. Some people are more fearful, right? There has to be a loop there, right? Because they go back to that familiar emotion, and it's probably a coping mechanism. What do you think?
So I found 100% anything, unless, like we talked about pain, unless there's a stimulus to change, people will stay the exact same until their dying day. I found that even gratitude can be a coping mechanism, because what happens is we don't know, and this is a higher level problem for sure. It's like, okay, this is good or good enough compared to the trauma that I came from, right? Like, so we end up settling. But the emotional state or the mental state that we stay in is going to continue to stay exactly where it's at unless we decide to step out objectively and change. And sometimes it has to be inevitable collapse, right? The suffering or the breakdown to precipitate rising like a phoenix, which is the emblem of your business.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so a lot of people will just ride the pain down all the way until it's kaput, until there's nothing left. It's just smoked.
Correct. And they realize they can't operate this way anymore and something has to change.
Yeah,
all the balls drop, right? The business falls out, they lose their wife, whatever it may be. It's just, that's the natural course of humanity.
Yeah, and there were signs along the way, right? I mean,
always.
Yeah, there's signs within your body. There's the stress itself.
Correct, but the constant identification with the mental narrative disconnects us from knowing what the body knows. The body is so wise, but we've been told by Western medicine that our body is broken and we need someone else to fix it. Whereas the Eastern philosophy, every single medicine has always said the cure is within us. If we connect, and then we can use natural remedies and stuff like that, but the cure is within us. So there's something off with that, right? Thousands of years of wisdom and actual medicine compared to, what, 100, 200 years of Western medicine? There's something off.
Yeah, so if we connect everything we've spoken about and we put a bridge between the things that we've talked about, it really comes down to being disconnected from self.
Always.
On technology, or disconnected from self because you're playing some sort of social game, being somebody you're not.
Yep.
You're not really walking in authenticity, so you're disconnected from yourself there. So your self-awareness is down. So since your self-awareness is down, you're not paying attention to self at all.
Nope.
You're paying attention to everything else but self.
Yep.
And then if you were to pay attention to yourself, you might come up with the conclusion that, hey, this is not working. How I'm showing up in my work, that's not working. How I'm showing up,
terrifying.
That's terrifying. And they don't want to be scared.
Nope.
Because that means that if they're not showing up to their wife authentically, to their work authentically, to themselves authentically,
They realize it's all an illusion, and they've been chasing it for what? They don't even know.
right? It's a
Because
house of cards. It's a house of cards. It's gonna fall.
Yep.
And that is more painful than just inching through another day in the inauthentic vibe, right?
The uncomfortable, the comfortably uncomfortable. That's where
Yeah.
they at, and that's the majority of people.
Right.
They're like, I know that there's something more, but I can't, and the mental narrative goes up. You're a failure, you're a loss, you're a loser, you're a fuck up, whatever it is. And so they stay in that loop, and they continue to grind themselves to death, literally to death, or they inevitably have a collapse. Their wife loses, they lose hundreds of thousands of dollars. So
Yeah, and there's a lot of men and women out there that would love to blame somebody.
yes.
They would love to say, "Oh, she's a bitch," or, she's a gold digger, and she's this, and he's an asshole, he's a narcissist. It's like, man, you know what? There were signs all along the way.
You chose to continue participating.
You chose to ignore the signs. You chose to ignore the physiological signs. You were getting sick regularly. What was all that about? You had aches and pains.
Yes.
What was all that about?
What was all that about?
Well,
Yep.
your back went out. What was that all about? You carrying too much weight? You know what I mean? That kind of thing. But people aren't paying attention to it.
No.
And if you're so distracted, which we all are, in fact, one of the things that just chaps my ass is I enjoy work. We already talked about that. I enjoy work. I enjoy being here with you, talking to you. I like giving Antonio a hard time. I like coming in here and doing what I do. I like getting on the phone with the people that I work with, that I love. I care about their success. I care about how we do things together. I love the growth of it. I love all of that. But, I also enjoy relaxing, right? And I enjoy the balance of it. And a lot of people just get so into their work and they don't focus on anything outside of that. Now, you talk to a lot of people that do that, right? They don't have anything, they don't have downtime.
Literally all they do is work. 12, 14, 16-hour work days. And then when they get home, they have responsibilities. A lot of them have partners. They don't even know, they are so distracted with so many mental narratives, they don't even know who they are anymore.
Yeah, right. And they're so focused on what they think they need to do and not focused on what they really need to do to live a more full life.
Correct. And the
Yeah.
reason why you were able to do what you do is because you address that and you got alignment with what actually serves you. But that is not the majority. Most people don't enjoy what they do. They hate what they do. They're doing it because their parents told them to, their coaches told them to, or it was the best way to money. Whenever I start working with people, I'm like, why are you even doing what you're doing?
Yeah.
Oh, it's the money. Well, this is inevitably, I never tell people to change. They create that objective awareness and they're like, oh shit, what do I do? Do I burn it down? Do I realign it? Whatever it may be. But if you are coming from an aligned place, then it's not actually even work. I don't even consider
right.
it work.
Right. So if you're aligned, and that's what I was getting ready to say, that's what chaps my ass. People are like, "Oh, you work too much." Like, I love my work.
Literally, I get asked that all the time. They're like, "You're always working." I'm like, I love my clients. I love
and
what I
then
do.
on the other hand, you got people that say that they're going to go spend time with family, right? Like I have people, they don't work with me anymore, but I've had several people that say, well, I haven't had my phone on me. I've been spending time with family, and I've never seen it. I don't see it. They act like I'm not in this world as well, right? So I go to dinner all the time. I'm out at dinner, and inevitably,
on the phone.
There you go. You got husband, wife, daughter, son. Doesn't matter the age. They're all like this
On the phone.
on their phone.
Yep.
Just like this. And I'm like, dude, that's not spending time with family. And if it is, if that's the version of spending time with family,
don't want it.
sucks.
Yeah.
It totally sucks. Right? So, you get guys that also don't want to tell the truth. They don't want to tell the truth that they don't want to do the work that's required. And I'm talking about corporate work, right?
Yes.
Like you're working with me, we're doing this work. We're helping people buy businesses, we're helping people sell businesses.
Yep.
And now they come up with all sorts of things. Well, I was on vacation with my family. I'm like, okay, you were gone for 7 days and you didn't have your cell phone on you. I doubt it.
I call bullshit.
Total bullshit, right? Well, I was spending time with family. And dude, if it existed, I would be all for it.
If it was real, yeah.
If it was real, I'd be like, no shit. You guys all did a cell phone detox.
That's amazing.
Every one of you put your cell phone into an EMF case to where
Yes.
to where like you couldn't have any EMFs around you.
You should ask them that next time.
And you sat around and you poked marshmallows through the poker, and you sat there next to the fire
With
for
s'mores.
7 days.
Sounds amazing.
Talking to making s'mores and talking about life and talking about the stars and picking up rocks. Really, you did that? I doubt it.
I doubt it.
But yet people lie to themselves and they lie to other people, right? That's what they do.
Because identity always wants to reassert itself, right? And so you see this in social media, you see this everywhere. The mind wants to keep itself valid. And so what it does is it keeps us in these thought loops and these justifications. And as long as we continue to act and speak upon them, they become our reality. And these are the people who don't own their lives, and they stay in the exact same pedantic loop of life that they want out of, but they don't really want, because it's the comfortable uncomfortable. And it's a lot better than facing the fear and the bullshit they've not faced.
Yeah, so I'll ask people, I'll say, what do you want?
They don't know.
They don't know.
They don't know.
And if you ask the question at first, they want to know, they want to tell you an answer quickly. Mm-hmm. Very seldom, if I ask somebody, because I work with people that are business owners and they own a small business that's worth $1 million, but they own a big business that's worth $50 million. I work with every type of person, and I will say, "What do you want?" And they'll usually give me a false answer. If I ask them again, hey man, I don't know about that answer. I'm not trying to be rude, but I really want to know, what do you really want?
It's an important question.
And if you ask them that several times, you'll either find they don't know or they're really uncomfortable with this conversation and they don't want you to keep probing.
Yep.
And underneath it all, what I've determined is that everybody wants peace, they want clarity, they want love,
Yep.
They want certainty.
Yep.
These are the things that they want.
Those are all soft states. They're all sensations. And we felt every single sensation by the time we're 17 to 18 years old. We know that now. So that's the thing, is like everything in life that we're seeking externally can already be met internally. And what happens is when you allow yourself to feel those sensations unconditionally, your heart and your head align. So there's a research institute in California called the Heart-Head Coherence Institute. And they're doing a lot of research on the heart neurons and the head neurons. Now, most of the time, the mind obviously is running the show. But when you sync the heart up to the head, what happens is it reverse engineers and you're feeling the sensation of the thing that you're seeking. And then your brain, this is where your brain actually gives us good steps. It reverse engineers, I want to feel more of that. What will create more in my tangible life to create more of that? And that's alignment. That is aligned action. That is when you listen to the narrative of the mind. But if you're going just off of this, you're completely disconnected from your body. It's someone else's thing you're seeking.
Right. You're living somebody else's life.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so what do you think prevents people from sitting in that boring, painful place to avoid distraction and to actually feel it and do the work? Do you think that they don't have the resources? Do you think they haven't met an Arielle? Do you think that they haven't met somebody like me? Or do you think they avoid people like us?
I would say that there's a subconscious avoidance going on, or even an energetic avoidance if they haven't met people like us. And if they have met people like us, they're just demonizing us by the words that we say they know to be true, right? We're talking about truth. Truth, the reason why they're triggered is because there is something within themselves that has not been met. For a good example of this, right? If someone is yelling at you on the street and they're screaming at you and they're obviously a crazy person, they're saying that you murdered their mother, it's not going to impact you, is it? No, because you haven't. However, if you hurt someone or you did something wrong, it's going to create an emotional upregulation within yourself because there's a degree of truth within yourself you have not met. That is every single human here in this world that has a trigger that they're not addressing. Now, it's not to say it's directly correlated, but a trigger cannot occur if you've met that portion of yourself, if you've integrated that portion of yourself, which goes to ownership and responsibility.
Right. And so underneath all that is the word that's not good enough to use, but underneath everything you just said is the word truth.
Yes.
Because, I trigger a lot of people.
Same.
I frustrate a lot of people. People watch what I say because they can't say the absurd. They can't figure out the absurd things that I say. They're like, why would he say that? Why would? And look, we can argue the word truth as in it's the truth. Like I'm 6'1". That's an absolute fact.
Yes.
Okay, that's truth. We can also argue other things that are maybe not your truth, but they're my truth.
Correct.
And if somebody has a hard time with somebody else's truth, and so they demonize that truth.
Because they're not secure in their own.
Exactly, because they're not secure in their own. Exactly. And so what you get oftentimes is somebody who's more of a truth teller. I am a bold, brazen truth teller.
Yep.
Okay, I'm not going to sit here and placate, sugarcoat. I'm not going to say things the right way and stress my brain out so I can say things to make sure you're not offended. I'm not going to do that.
Well, every time you do that, you're suppressing a portion of your authentic expression.
Absolutely. And that itself is stored in the body too.
Yes.
Suppression of self,
Yes.
which will more than likely result in probably throat problems or thyroid problems.
100%.
Right.
It's dis-ease, but like literally everything. Yeah. It is in the words.
And I think that is okay. So if you suppress yourself and you're not speaking, it's throat for sure.
Yep.
But I think there's also
solar
something
plexus,
sacral.
Solar plexus and sacral would typically be in reverse.
Okay, solar plexus.
Solar plexus.
Solar plexus and thyroid.
Yep.
So but this is where people live though. Okay, so every 100 years there's a new set of people.
Yes.
And where people choose to live oftentimes is in judgment, sitting in the seat of judgment, chastising people like me for saying the truth because they have never given themselves permission to say the truth. Correct. They have been steeped in Catholicism. They've been steeped in dogmatic religion. They've been steeped in what the world told them they should be. They never ever thought about who they actually are. And so then they come across somebody like me who's a truth teller and they're like, how dare you be you? Yep. Because I don't know how to be me, so how dare you be you? And that's really the subconscious thought. They don't think that.
No.
But that's the subconscious.
Because the subconscious is fighting you because you're standing for the dissolvement of itself. Because you're standing against the very way that they view themselves. And that is a threat to the system, and that's why they attack you, because that thing is trying to stay alive. That's why I said it's kind of like an organism.
Right, so exactly, and it must stay alive.
Yes.
Right? And so here's how I say it. Like, if you're something, and I don't feel like I'm anything, so you're something and I'm nothing, and how dare you be something because I'm nothing. Because I've subscribed to everybody else's thoughts. Yep. I've subscribed to what my mom told me I should be, what my dad told me I should be, what that goofy pastor said I should be, or that goofy priest or minister said I should be, what my corporate job says I should be, what the cultural narrative should be. Yep. I'm nothing but what everybody else told me I should be. How dare you be something? Because I'm nothing and I live in the land of nothingness, and you're something and I don't like that. That's all subconscious.
All of it.
And people are getting attacked because they're just being real.
100%.
And it's a very damaging thing because now what people do with the age of the internet, everybody is a new age.
Warrior.
Yeah, keyboard warrior, and they can diagnose.
Oh God, yeah.
Right? So who does that Chad guy think he is? Who does he think he is? He's something and I'm nothing. And I'm going to remind him he can't be something because I'm nothing. I don't even feel sorry for them. I just pity them. I'm like,
it's not your responsibility to bring them to awareness or ownership.
Right. It's not my responsibility to have other people be able to think, feel, connect to themselves, speak their truth. And so I just have to move on. Now, the trick there is when you're in relationship with somebody and it's not so much the person you're in relationship with, it's the people that they're connected to, because those people will bleed out the person that you're with, those or even just your friends. Yep. You will be in close relationship with a lover or a friend, and they're under attack. They're under attack by their own family. They're under attack by whoever it is, and you want to be there and love that person, but they're under attack themselves. And so we're dealing with this, all of us. It's nice to say we can just move on from these types of people, but we can't because other people are under attack by them as well. You know what I'm saying? Like,
what makes you say you can't?
Well, I've walked away from plenty of them. Same. I'm simply saying that not everybody can, and so by some way we're always dealing with it.
Which goes to nervous system regulation, right? If you know, think of it as like, say someone loves working in they love working with toxic gases, right? That's their passion, right? They know that they're going to be exposed to that toxic gas every single day, right? But they also know, I need to be able to live through this. So they have strategies and tools to detoxify when they're not around that toxic stimulus. So if someone is around, because people like that literally are energetic vampires. Their frequency is vibrating at a lower frequency. Their consciousness is not there. And when you're in that constantly, our environment triggers certain disease mutations and us falling into old conditioning patterns. So if you know that's going to happen, you have to be very cognizant and aware, okay, I need this, this, and this to be able to kind of detoxify so I can still be around these people and support the person that's close to me who's trying to support me, but we have to be in this stimulus.
Yeah, for sure. And that's absolutely right. And so if you know you're going into danger, you just know that you have to take certain precautions.
Exactly.
That's totally acceptable.
Yep.
But, animals are smarter at this than we are because deer, you're not going to
They shake after trauma.
You're not going to see a deer hang out with a bear.
Nope.
Okay, you're not going to be seeing a salmon trying to get close to a grizzly bear. Okay, you're not going to see elk trying to mate with deer. Mm-mm. Okay, nature is smarter. They just avoid that of which doesn't serve them.
It's very simple. Yeah, it's very simple.
Very simple. Us humans, we try to rationalize everything and make this difficult life more difficult by trying to bend ourselves around all these things that just aren't for us.
Well, and that goes to social validation, right? It goes to validating outside of ourselves. If you're an independent individual who knows how to give yourself love, worthiness, and acceptance, then you're not seeking these things outside yourself, which is why being sovereign is the most powerful and also selfless thing you can do, because you're no longer seeking something outside yourself to stabilize you. You've taken complete and total ownership for that.
Yeah, and why do you think people defend certain beliefs even though it doesn't serve them? Why do you think they continue to defend the beliefs that they have?
The illusion of safety, the illusion of comfort, right? Even if, because quite often when we find a belief, it is some sort of savior for a pain that we're going through. So even if we logically and cognitively are like, this might not be the best thing, but that emotional state, right? We've been using emotions to validate choices. Any belief is just a means of being able to create the illusion of safety. But beliefs by default are constructs. Constructs themselves are limiting.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm anti-construct, anti-matrix. Like, you have to get out of it. And what I find is a lot of people are playing the game of life for this life. Mm-hmm. And that's a total different awareness whenever you start living in truth, which is, I'm only disconnected from spirit as much as I allow myself to be. And I will be moving on from this life to the next life. And what I do in this life will echo in the next. Yes. Like, if you live with that kind of understanding, it changes how you show up in the world.
Every decision you make.
Right. So most people are playing this game right now, right here, in this week, and this month, under social construct, marital construct, societal construct. They're not paying attention to the long road, the long journey, and knowing that we're coming back and we will answer for the things that we've done in this life.
Every single time.
If you have hurt people, if you have manipulated people, if you have told stories that have separated people from those that they love, if you have held on to beliefs not serving and it hurt people in this life, you will pay for it in the next life. And so understanding that the dogmatic religious institutions of this country is at the heart of fucking up everybody in the process of trying to learn spirituality. Yep. That's a sobering moment.
It really is.
Because you're like, dude, okay, I go to the doctor, they're trying to give me some drug that's not good for me.
Yep.
I go to church and they're molding minds into dogma and construct. And so everywhere I go in life, whenever you're out of the matrix, whenever you're pulled out and you've eaten the red pill and you've got the wide eyes and you got the magic glasses and you can see what's really going on because you have the magic glasses, and you get the gift of discernment and you get the gift of being able to see people for who they really are. Yep. What people don't understand about that is that it becomes more painful for the one who wears the glasses because you're up against it every single day. Yeah.
Every single, and that's why a lot of people end up just disconnecting and going out into the middle of nowhere, is because it's too much. It's too much lies. It's too much constant. And if you have to do that, you have to do that. However, I think you and I, like, we know that we need to help people in our own way to be able to get to that point for those who are right on the precipice, right? Not dragging you over the line, but like there's that interest, and it's like, I have tools for you should you decide to take them.
Right. And that's what Jesus was here to do.
Yep.
And you know, regardless of people's beliefs around Jesus, I just like to look at the man and what he was talking about.
Agreed.
And people have made such a construct out of that as well. My God, the biggest of all is the Jesus thing. And I believe in Jesus. I just don't believe everything around it.
Agreed. And people don't even realize that the New Testament was that version that 90% of the Christians follow was written by the Apostle Paul.
Absolutely.
And he never even met Paul. Paul
Absolutely.
never even met him. And Paul also, some even theorized that Paul had an issue with him.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, Paul was power hungry.
Yep.
He was a murderer of Christians. Mm-hmm. He never met Jesus, and geographically they would have never met, and the timeline they would have never met.
Yep.
And so they're studying Paulianity is what they're
Literally,
studying.
yes.
And if you talk to a person who's Catholic, they don't even know the Bible. Mm-mm. They know what the priest says. They know to kneel, to be in shame, to be in guilt.
Well, and hell didn't even exist before Roman Catholicism.
Absolutely.
It was there's just the underworld. It was afterlife.
Absolutely.
That's it.
And it still doesn't exist, by the way. There is no hell.
There is no hell.
There's an afterlife.
Sorry, guys.
You're right. Sorry. There's an afterlife, and
then you come back.
You will have to answer
for your karma. For the things that you do.
Yeah, and that is a certain kind of hell.
100%.
You know, if you're getting away with something in this life, and you're lying and you're being hurtful, and it doesn't have to be a direct lie. If you're lying to people behind their backs and you're causing division and you're causing mischief and you're separating people from those that otherwise would love them, and you're just that kind of person, that's a certain kind of hell, because when you come back, you're going to be the recipient of it.
I would bet good money that is what my first 20 years of life were previous, because I know previous lives I was like a mercenary. I saw a lot of it when I died in 2022. Flipped across the Austin, Texas freeway, hit the barrier, left my body, came back. And I started getting into, I was like, there's something off here. And I found out about the Akashic Records. And I started diving into my own record, learned that practice. And I had some pretty dark, fucked up pasts. And I would bet very good money that was the karma I was resolving in the first 20-some years of my life.
Yeah. Yeah, and so a lot of people won't pay attention to that. They won't dig into that. They've got to keep the narrative alive, and they're going to keep their stories alive. Mm-hmm. They're going to live in story. They're going to live in narrative. They're going to be the victim. They're going to be the martyr. They're going to be the victim. They're going to be the victor. Whatever it is, they're going to live in that. Mm-hmm. And because, like you said, it's like an organism. Their story must live. Their bullshit must live on. The facade must live on. And it's like, hey, dude, that's cool, but man, if you want to come back here again and live another 60 or 70 or 80 years of that is hell.
That is hell. And that's the theory for the esoterics, is that is hell.
Yes.
Like heaven and hell are both present.
Yeah.
But we have to choose to not follow the path to fall into hell. And then you know this, the more people who bitch and complain and the world is horrible and all these different things, you're creating more of the very hell that you say you don't want to experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You're keeping it alive.
Yep.
Yeah, and so people they study Christianity, and they're not understanding that they're really studying Paulianity. Yep. And Paul had such a heavy hand in that Bible, and he was power hungry. He was a murderer. And you can argue, but he found God and changed. No, or he was a murdering asshole that was power hungry.
Yep.
And then people, for some reason, because they're still stuck in the matrix, they still don't understand, they haven't done the work, they haven't dug into it, they have a hard time understanding that it's happening right in front of them today, because history does repeat itself.
Always.
So we have a certain man in power. I won't say his name. We have a certain man in power in this world. And it's amazing that people hate him so badly. And it's amazing that they've almost killed him 3 times now, I think. Mm-hmm. It's amazing that every time he speaks, that the powers to be hate him. Mm-hmm. I haven't even said his name.
And
I won't say his name.
You already know who it is, yeah.
I won't say his name. But people are not seeing that the truth that is being revealed, the truth that is being said, the truth, whether you like it or not, is being served to you. They're not seeing that the same people that killed Jesus are responding the same way with this man that I'm not even mentioning his name. The more truth you speak, the more you shall be hated. That is one of the messages that Christ came here to teach us.
Yep.
If you're bold, they will kill you. That's yet another message.
Because you're a threat.
You're a threat to
how they are perpetuating the narrative of consumerism and marketing and to be able to control you. The thing is, every single one of them, they want to control you, and they control you by getting your attention. And what are they doing? They're getting our attention. They're distracting us. They're keeping. This is what they want. Mm-hmm. This is your soul on repeat, and we don't even allow ourselves to realize that, because the reality of that is too terrifying.
Absolutely.
That this entire thing that you've lived has been masterfully contrived, and you've lived an entire life that wasn't even yours.
Correct. Yeah, and so what Jesus a lot of times was trying to say, and people also don't understand, he was 33 years old. He was not the final product.
No.
You become wise, real wise, when you're much older. He was 33 years old. He knew what he knew.
Yep.
And he was here to give us a message. And most of his message was about love, about fear, and about consciousness.
Yep.
So how you doing on your love? How you doing on your fear? How you doing on your consciousness? That's really what he came here to talk about. But it's been turned into an institution. It's been turned into what I call churchianity.
It's true.
It's been turned into the new modern pussification of Christianity. And I call it churchianity. And most people are just going along with the modern day church. But if you look at modern day church, what did the modern day church, whenever the big pandemic happened, what did the church do? Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing. They did absolutely nothing.
No. And so, like, Christ's message was love, fear, and consciousness. If you condense everything that was said about him, it's love, fear, and consciousness.
Yep.
And so it reminds me when they're in the boat and the storm's going like hell and it's about to crash them over and everybody's freaking out, and Jesus was taking a nap.
Yeah, he's chilling.
And he's like, why are you so fearful?
Yeah.
Well, what happened whenever the pandemic happened? The Christians got fearful, and they did nothing. Mm-hmm. And so we have a church on every single corner.
And we can't have them collectively rise up to help us?
No. They shut up. They didn't say anything. Mm-hmm. And then they wear their wristbands, right? What would Jesus do? Well, I'll tell you what he would have done.
He would not have sat around on his ass doing nothing.
No, right. And so they wear their what would Jesus do? They drive around with their cars that have a sticker on them like WWJD and not of this world and all this stuff. And it's like, bro, listen, I'll tell you what he would do. He would probably resist. He would probably go get people to join his resistance. In his case, he had 12.
Yep.
He would probably march from town to town, educate people. He might strip everything that he has and go into the woods for 40 days.
Yep.
But they wear their fucking bracelet. What would Jesus do? But they'll do nothing that Jesus did. No. But they will go to church. They will play the part. They'll be nice. They'll go to church and be nice.
Even they playing nice is not actually nice. A lot of the times it's just bullshit, and they're holding on to it as some sort of illusion of safety because they are actually terrified of facing the shit. Many of them cheat on their wives. They steal. They do all these different things. Don't get me wrong. There are some very good Christians.
Deception is not nice.
No, it is not.
Deception is not nice. Living inauthentically is not nice.
Nope.
You know, and that goofy son of a bitch that's at the front door of every church in the United States right now. Hi, welcome today. Welcome to our church, and thanks for serving us. You will serve with us
How
today.
Are you really today?
Welcome to our church, and thank you for worshiping with us. Like, where do they find these guys?
I don't know.
Right? So the deception, being fake, being false, it's not nice. So they go to church and they're nice. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of the men that go to church, if they want some pussy tomorrow, the wife said, hey, you're going to church with me. Yeah. And so he's like, okay, I'll go to church because if I go to church, then I'll be able to sleep with my wife.
Playing the game. Yep.
Right? And so all that deception under the veil of being nice. And then I have to remind people, Jesus wasn't nice.
He wasn't. He turned over the frickin' tables because of the blood sacrifice. He had no fear of death, no fear of any of that. And he lived his life, the very short life he actually had, fully and completely. Yeah. And he unapologetically. And pastors by default, like, here's the thing that never, even when because I was raised Christian, and even when I was 12, I was like, but he's a human. He's inherently flawed. Why is how he perceives the Bible any better than how I perceive the Bible? That makes no sense.
Well, I would tell you that the reason that he has to read the Bible in front of people is because people won't distract themselves enough to read the Bible for themselves. And
most of them haven't even read the Bible.
Exactly.
I've read it at least 15 times.
Yeah, I've read it 3. I've read it 3 times. And I read it slowly over a couple years, and I read it intensely one year, and then I dabbled in it for another time, to get through it for the 3rd time. And I just think that people don't read. I don't think they pay attention. I think they're too distracted. So the whole purpose of church is to go listen to that guy and hear what he says and be part of the community, even though you're showing up in community lying.
Yeah, you're not even authentic with the 10 Commandments. Like, how many of you can actually say that you stand by the 10 Commandments, for goodness sakes?
Yeah, and why is it 10? Why isn't it 5? Why isn't it 4? Why isn't it 7? The 10 sounded good.
There's theories there, but yeah.
Yeah, this sounded good to have 10. But I'm just simply saying that constructs, whether it be medical, whether it be big pharma, be big church, Catholicism, the 200 different religions, that's another thing. How can we have 200 different religions?
They're all right, mind you.
Yeah, they're all right. Your God's wrong, my God's right. Fuck you, I'm going to kill you, whatever. And, oh my God, you're this and I'm that. I wear a different T-shirt than you. Oh, you're Christian. Well, I'm Catholic. I'm different than you. Like, we're all T-shirt wearing motherfuckers. And it's like, man, when are you going to take the T-shirt off and start thinking for yourself? You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying. But back to the point, we're talking about how construct is ruling people and how people are living out of these constructs. And I have a saying, and maybe it's an incomplete saying, but everything is a religion.
It is.
Okay, everything's a religion. And it's like, if you were to ask somebody why they think the way they think, they're just going to say, well, because. No, you were programmed somewhere.
Yep, 100%. I say the exact same thing. Why do you think that? I think it because so-and-so. Okay, but who told them that? Who told them that? What was their prerogative? Why'd they do that? Why'd they do that? There's always a reason, and people say they're free thinkers and they're free of the matrix all the damn time, but then they don't actually look at their lives. They don't actually look at where their decision point's coming from. Why am I even having this choice in my mind right now, and why am I deciding to act upon it blindly?
Absolutely. Yeah, so if you look at, here's a good example. Okay, so if you look at the parents that were born, let's just say you have a parent that was born in the late 40s up until maybe late 60s. I would say that's the area. That's the genre of parent I'm talking about. Late 40s, late 60s. Yeah, I think no. Yeah, no, okay. Mid 40s to like 1960, 1965. If you look at those parents, they were the epitome of, you can do anything you want in this life, and you can have anything you want as long as you want it, right? You can be anything, little girl. You would hear that, right? That was them. But they were equally the same people that as soon as you showed who you were,
they'd tell you to shut up and sit down.
Who do you think you are?
Yep.
So it's like, dude, what do you do? You can be anything you want to. My name is CT. Really, I went by CT.
Okay.
Later on, everybody started calling me Chad, but CT is really what I went by. So who do you think you are, CT? Well, that was right after they said I can be anything I wanted to be.
Yeah.
Oh, really? So back then I was like, I can be an astronaut. I can be a pilot. These are the kind of things I wanted to do, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And then I'm like, well, how do I do that? Well, you just got to put your mind to it, because you can be anything. And then I would be who I'm being. And I was a rowdy, rough little fucker. I mean, I would do the stupidest shit ever. Things that were much less dangerous than being a pilot or being an astronaut. And next thing I know, it was like, who do you think you are?
Yep.
I'm like, what the hell am I supposed to live in your dichotomy?
Yeah,
right?
You're telling me one thing, I do the thing, and then you tell me I'm wrong. I don't know how to operate.
That's those parents.
Yep.
Late 40s to mid 60s. If your parents were born in those years, that's exactly who they were.
100%. And then children end up becoming suppressed, and they fall into this social model, and then they become disconnected. And those are generally the people like, I'm unhappy, I'm unfulfilled, and they're at retirement age, and they don't even know how to live their life in retirement.
Yeah, they're still operating on that. For their whole lives.
Yep.
They never fix it. And so I think the message is, be careful how you parent, man, because you're programming a child.
Literally. Our brains are in a state of theta between the ages of 8 to 12 or 13. And theta brainwave is the same as a hypnotic induction. Hypnosis is not magic, it's brain chemistry. So what happens is if those children are rewarded by expectations, right? Like your goals, your outcomes, all that, they are then programmed to seek things outside themselves. Instead, and so their love, their worth, their validation is something that they're codependent upon expectation for. If a child is rewarded for who they are inherently, they're a self-operating autonomous system. It's just those people are very, very rare in this day and age.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And they live much harder lives because like Kate says, majority rules, right? So if majority rules,
Yep.
then it must be right. And that's where they live.
But those people know how to regulate themselves because their parents taught them how to regulate themselves. Like that version, they're able to show up fully and completely, and they know that no matter what, they're okay.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is...
Oh, the other version.
No,
The
what
other
I'm saying
version.
is the
Okay.
majority of people that are out there are under the guise of the construct. They're in the
Yes.
matrix. They're deeply embedded in it.
Yep.
And it's harder to live among them because they are the majority.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Kate has kind of helped me understand too. It's like, she's like, Chad, majority rules. You're not going to be able to get the majority of people to tap into their self,
No.
to stop giving their authority away, to stop thinking that they're right. You're not going to get them to tap into self. You're not going to get them to...
It's hive mentality.
It's what?
Hive mentality.
Yeah, right. Majority rules, right?
Yeah.
Wearing the T-shirt, being part of the group,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, I mean, think about that. What do you think it cost them over time? What do you think being disconnected from self,
Their life.
their whole life?
Their life. Most people don't ever wake up. They might get a little awake, but then they're like, it's too uncomfortable. Right? They might have a little bit of moment, and sometimes they fall right back into those old patterns of behavior because those neural networks have been so thoroughly ingrained. It's the easy default. And then now we have all these distractions to pull us back in. So even if you start to have a moment of awareness, it's easy to plug yourself back in. In The Matrix, what's his name? The character, where he's part of the crew, the resistance, and then he gets lured back in. I forgot his name, but he gets lured back in. He consciously goes back into the Matrix and sacrifices everyone. And that's a lot of people as well, unfortunately.
I forget that part. You're not talking about Neo. You're not
No,
talking about
Neo.
Morpheus.
No, it's one of the guys that's part of the crew.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's right.
He actually disentangles. He comes back.
Kind of a shorter guy.
Yeah,
kind of
but he's
small-
like, this is too uncomfortable. It's too much. I can't do it anymore. And some people do that.
Oh, I remember that now. Yeah. Okay. So I didn't understand that was the implication of that part of the movie. He went back in. Because he was tired of the fight.
Yeah, he was tired of the fight.
But rule really says, basic spirituality says that would be impossible because you can't unsee what you've seen.
You can't unsee what you've seen, but you can fall into complete and total depression while being aware of what's going on. And it's just because they don't.
No, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can go back into it.
You can never become unaware, but you can choose to be like a hidden among the matrix. I've seen that happen before, and they're just completely disconnected. And
yeah, they're like NPCs.
Yeah, they're NPCs with an awareness. So they drink, they do sex. A lot of addicts actually are that. It's very nihilistic. They're aware of what's going on, but they're also so obstinate with the mental narrative that they just decide to stay exactly where they're at.
Bro, okay, so what you're saying is that they're NPCs, but they're also aware, but they're not strong enough to step away from it. So they stay in it, and then, oh man, so then they drink and they use sex and
to dull the pain.
Probably some other ugly tendencies too, like backbiting, backstabbing, manipulation, all sort of. They just stay in it.
Yep.
Right? They play the game differently.
I would even bet I've met a few people that some very affluent individuals have done that. They know what's going on, but they play that game, and they're able to make money, but they're not good human beings, and they're not happy human beings.
Okay. Wow. That's a good point because. Okay. All right. Well, that's obvious, right? I mean, sometimes the obvious things, look at the people that are in power. I mean, there you go. They know what's going on.
They know what's going on. 100%.
They choose to stay in it.
Correct.
For their own personal benefit.
Correct.
And again,
but they have to answer for that the next lifetime.
Absolutely. Again, that's cool, dude. But man, you got to come back, man. And I don't
want to deal with that karma.
No. And so it changes the whole game when you live from that karmic place, because when you really understand the true meaning of hell, that is hell.
That is hell.
Another 70 years of dealing with the consequences of what you did. And, we don't know how it exactly works, but this is what I think, based on what I've studied, what I've been taught, what I've learned from Dolores Cannon, what I've learned from Esther Hicks, what I learned from Wayne Dyer, what I've learned from a lot of people, is you're going to come back and you're going to live some sort of version of that. And the way that I put it in simple terms, if you're a pedophile or if you're a rapist or whatever, okay, you might not come back and get raped or whatever, but you might have it worse. You might be the parent of a child that gets raped.
Which is horrible.
You know, and so whatever you're doing in this life, and that's an extreme case, right? Like being a pedophile or a rapist, whatever, that's an extreme case.
We just found a lot of them.
But there's a lot of them. But I'm saying there are families all across this country that are sowing division among their own family. They are creating division. They are playing roles of divider in chief. They are playing roles of antagonist. They're playing roles of the martyr. They're playing victims. They're playing victors. They're the victim and they're victor. They're the martyr to what happened to them. They're running their narrative. And it's like, you can do that, but do you really want to? And they don't have the ability to say, no, that's actually not what I really want.
They do have the ability. They choose not to. They're subconsciously validating where they're at.
You think they have the ability? And okay, so how would you get them to understand they have that ability? As a coach, how would you get them to understand they have that ability?
I can't make someone create that ability until they have the moment of awareness that something is off. This can't keep going this way. And once you have them become aware that they're not their thoughts, that moment of aha typically breaks in, and that's when real introspection starts to occur.
So you mentioned that to me last night, and I think that it's one of those things that I already knew, but you said it, and it became more hyper aware in my mind, right? Okay, so you said that we were talking about a specific person, and that person does not understand that they are not their thoughts.
Correct. Yeah, and as long as you think you aren't your thoughts, you're going to listen. As long as you think you're your thoughts, you're going to continue to listen to the narrative because you think that is you. Why wouldn't you listen to you? If you think you are you, you're going to keep doing all the things that you say you should do. But how can you be the thing that you observe? If the thing that you observe comes and goes, but you're still present, how can you be it?
Right. And so they're a slave to their mind, slave to their thoughts. And they're going to identify with those thoughts and tie an emotion. Let's just say they're more ready to be a victim or in anger. They are their thoughts, they think.
Which further solidifies, because emotional states solidify memory. Emotions, positive or negative. So every time an emotion on average only lasts about 60 to 90 seconds. It's the thought narrative that reinforces it. So it literally is just this cycle of validation again and again and again, and they get more enmeshed in it, more hypervigilant, louder, more reactive, more thoroughly ingraining that neural pathway. So this is where it's like they have to reach a point of overstimulation or collapse. I did with my first addiction. I collapsed. I literally was like, I can't keep doing this. And I was like, I have to change, right? And if they don't reach that point, they will stay in the narrative. So actually, sometimes it's more beneficial to allow them to have that collapse. Not saying it's a good thing, but sometimes it is what has to happen.
Yeah. And the modern systems that we have, the psychological help that we have, the medical help that we have, they're not prepared to address any of these things.
Nope. No, because they want you to stay in the system. It keeps it profitable. Right, just like when people are saying, "Oh yeah, well they know how to cure cancer," it's a multi-million-dollar industry.
Billions, hundreds of billions.
Excuse me. If you solve it, what happens to the industry? It dissolves, and people are like, "Oh no." People in the esoterics. I know there's a gentleman who his name is now I'm blanking on his name. Terrain theory. If you want to get into that rabbit hole, he cured cancer. They kicked him out of the U.S. They were going to put him in prison. So he went to Mexico to practice. He started having people come over the border, and guess what he said? You'll cure it, not me. I'm going to teach you how to do this for yourself. And he cured thousands of people. He's actually out here.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, I know it exists. And there's a guy right now that has cured cancer, and he's been on Megyn Kelly. He's been on, cool. I think he's been on, I think he's been on Bill O'Reilly. I think he was on Tucker Carlson.
Oh, wow.
And I think his name is Shoop or Sloop, but they're curing cancer, and they're also curing cancer in Saudi Arabia.
That's amazing.
And rumor has it that there's vaccines for it now, but how many of us are going to trust that?
Exactly.
Right, because of our most recent little go.
Would you want to go down the rabbit hole of virology and how it's bullshit?
Right, exactly. Not on today's podcast, but yeah. Okay, so let me ask you a question. So we don't have the psychological help we need. Mm-hmm. We damn sure don't have the spiritual teachings that we need. Mm-mm. We definitely don't have the medical help that we need, and beyond the medical, beyond the spiritual, beyond the education. We don't even have education, if we're being honest about it. We don't even have the education that we really need. So when somebody finds you and you can do real good work for them, you can help them get out of their mess. Mm-hmm. What do you think it actually takes for them to change? What it really takes for them to change if they're going to work with you?
Facing all the things that they've been avoiding. Every single thing, every single resistance, every single mental narrative, every single emotional thing. And I always have them start small, right? Because that creates a positive feedback loop. And also when we're creating, because there is a new identity that's going to be created that will be their main operating system, not the old one, right? Still not them, but it's going to be a different version of identity that's coming forth. And when you start to build those little small wins, right, it starts to give the brain that little like feedback, that little dopamine it hit, and it's like, oh, we can do this. We can do this, right? Because the mind is going to scream. And a lot of people have suppressed trauma that is screaming, don't touch me because I'm afraid of being hurt. But that means that you need to do it, right? We have literally everything we've been told is an inverse of what we should be doing. And so when people work with me, that is what we're going to do. We're going to be doing the intense, deep emotional work. We're going to be moving through those experiences. But I also address the nervous system because, like I said, the majority of people are so stressed, we can't even have a deep discussion without you freaking out. So I have different specific modalities I've created for breath work, for meditation, for gut protocols, because our gut actually regulates our neurotransmitters, so our serotonin, our dopamine, our melatonin. Serotonin is responsible catalyst for rewiring the brain. And if you don't have that optimal, your brain's not going to rewire. So my first master's was in nutrition. We addressed the gut. And then once the body's stabilized, we can now start to get into that theta alpha state and start to rewire the brain and process these traumas. Absolutely.
That's a great answer. And you know, one of the things that Gary Brecka has taught me is that 44% of the population cannot convert B12 and folic acid.
Yes.
There's 44% of the population.
Huge.
So let's just, 44 is close enough to 50. Basically, 50% of the population cannot convert certain nutritional deficiencies.
Yep.
And those nutritional deficiencies lead to the body's inability to then produce and regulate the amount of serotonin that comes back up to our brain.
Yep.
So literally just by starting to take basic vitamins, and maybe it takes 60 days for the body to begin to cure itself. But instead of that, they're hooked by big pharma, and they'll just go take an antidepressant.
Well,
which
those are SSRIs, actually.
Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors.
Yes.
So they
inhibit your body. They take it and they recycle it. They don't actually help you produce anything.
Absolutely. Right. They slow it down to the brain. Mm-hmm. And so people say they've been on, antidepressants for 10 years. It's like, bro, you should be off of them then.
Yeah.
You should have taken them for a hard little time, for maybe a month or two, and if it was a true medicine, it would have cured it.
Correct.
But people don't think.
Nope.
They just go, no, I just keep taking this because my doctor said.
Well, and the thing is, when medical, like when what do you call it? Fuck, I can't even think. Medication was originally created, it was meant to be temporary. But now everybody, because then you can't keep paying the money for the medication, so of course they're going to keep pushing it, saying you have to take it the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
But your body heals. Like if your gut biome is functioning optimally, it takes care of all these things. But because we're so stressed, that creates that inflammation, kills off the gut bacteria, which further pushes you into reactivity.
Absolutely. Inflammation is the number one cause of death, man.
It turns on all disease mutations.
Absolutely.
Cancer can't turn on without it. I mean, I've had a lot of clients who come to me with gastritis, IBS, RA, diabetes, ulcerative colitis, even stage 3 cancer, and actually all those things have gone into remission, not because we worked on them, but because their body was stabilized to heal on its own. Downregulate
their nervous system.
Yes, and it took care of itself.
Get rid of inflammation.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, so the stress is the underlying, and I think people understand that stress is an underlying cause, but I don't know that they know how to go about down-regulating their nervous
They're
system.
addicted to the stress. They're addicted to the chaos. And the brain, right, there's the story, especially for those of us who were raised in more chaotic environments, of like, oh, I don't feel safe in stillness. I don't feel safe in nothing, because the mental narrative goes, I have to keep doing things to be productive, to have validation. But that is where the magic lay.
Absolutely.
Is in the stillness.
Yeah, people are addicted to their volume of chaos and noise. They really are.
Yep.
If you're used to a volume of, say, 6 of chaos and noise, you're not going to go to a 4. Not by choice.
Nope.
You want to keep it at 6. And I have a saying, that people have to keep people have to keep the noise cranked up because they're afraid of the silence.
Yes. Yeah.
And so the people like that, I try to stay away from. In fact, I do stay away from them. Here where we drove into my studio on a Thursday, Friday, and a Saturday, and partly Sunday, it is one of the most chaotic places right here by my studio.
Really?
Oh,
like a
yeah.
party area or something?
Oh, God, terrible. Yeah, so it's every idiot that was able to strap together enough cash to go buy a motorcycle so they could drive 5 miles up the street,
Party.
go to a loud bar, say they have a motorcycle, stay in the chaos, stay in the noise, and then take their motorcycle back home, creating identity around the motorcycle culture.
Yep.
Creating identity around friends who aren't friends. They just think they are.
Well, if you have to have alcohol involved to be friends, are you really friends?
You're not.
Nope.
And if you got to go to a loud bar where you can't hear your friends talking, you're definitely not around friends. You don't know who they are.
Yeah.
So they're asleep, and you just have to, you don't have to, process that too much. They're just asleep. You have to let them be asleep and try not to wake them up, because they might come out of their slumber pretty pissed off if you try to wake them up.
Yep.
Because they're so married to being in the slumber. They're so married to being in their matrix. And that's really the point. So what do people like you and I do that do have the magic glasses? What do we do? Do we form a better community around us? Do we stay tighter together? Do us with eyes find those that have eyes and create a community?
I believe that is essential in this day and age, especially with the way the world is going. You have to find more people that are of a similar vibration, belief, awareness, whatever you want to call it, because guess what? That's also the best you can do for the world. Because like I was talking about earlier, you might want to look into this, the Heart Head Coherence Institute. When we're vibrating from that place, the heart's more sovereignty, it actually expands the field around us. So when we collect, even a group of like 5 to 10 of us has a couple mile radius when we decide to collectively band together. So yes, there's less people, but the quality of those beings is far superior, and it actually helps elevate the entire energy around the people that we could collect it with.
Yeah. So what I'm doing is, everybody that's on my podcast, everybody that comes on here that I really like, including you, you're on my WhatsApp chat group.
Okay.
And so everybody that's on that WhatsApp chat group, they know me,
Yes.
and I wouldn't put them on there unless they had something. And I don't mean just for business purposes. I'm talking about spirit, soul,
Everything.
emotions,
complete
integrity,
being. Yep.
the whole thing. That's my way of doing it. So
love it.
earlier, and I wasn't able to answer you because my guys were distracting me, but you said, why did I start this podcast?
Yes.
It's because I want to create more of a community around me. And when I have conversations like this that we've had today, it's not just because it's a podcast and the world's going to see it. It's because I need those kind of conversations, because living among the dead kills me.
Yes.
And I need to be around people that are more elevated than that. I don't need to be hanging out with monks, but I need to be hanging out with people that are at least, they pulled themselves out of the matrix. They're aware. They got the magic glasses on. I need to be around those people.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing. I mean, I'm creating a WhatsApp chat group, which is like a little mastermind. And that way, if something comes up, let's just say I've got 100 people in it, and something comes up like, hey, you all, I'm going to head to Cancun for a week. Anybody want to go? I know I'm around people that I would want to be around me in some way. Yeah. And oftentimes the family that you were born into is not the same family you end up being with.
I agree.
You end up, and by the way, that's a spiritual teaching. I mean, Esther Hicks teaches that. Joe Dispenza teaches that heavily. Joe Dispenza does. Because the contrast that you were born into is oftentimes the work you had to do.
Exactly. And it's the deepest work is the family.
Yeah.
It's almost like initiation of sorts into a higher path of awareness. I told Kate, I had to step out of a relationship with my sister last year because it just was no longer. She kept pulling old experiences forward, and I said, I love you, but I can love you from a distance. You know where to find me if that changes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you think that she's pulling up old stories, to like rub it in your face, or is she still identifying you
as the old person?
That sucks, man. I hate when people do that.
She moved away, and I said, I've moved through those things, and we've had these conversations multiple times already. So why do we keep pulling it to the forefront? It's kind of like the therapist, right? The therapist keeps pulling it up and up and up, and I'm like, okay, can we just move forward? But no, because the mind wants to continue to identify. She's also very heavy into Christianity, and I said, that's great. Like, I love Jesus, all that, but there's a severe disconnect, and that is her thing. That is her construct. That is her belief. I honor and respect that.
Yeah, so her belief can be that you need to worship Jesus and all this kind of stuff, but the pesky little detail around that is that Jesus did not want you to worship him.
He never said to, ever.
No, he said, you will do greater things than me. Mm-hmm. And he was trying to equip people with the tools to do it themselves. Mm-hmm. And are people doing it? No, they're not.
Terrified of ownership.
They're terrified of ownership. Absolutely. People are terrified of doing the work. They're terrified of the ownership of it. They're terrified of change. People are terrified of the responsibility to have to dismantle the stories and the narratives to get to truth. And you're going to get all sorts of opposition along the way if you are living in that space where you've done that kind of work. And that's what you and your sister, that's where you're at. Yeah. It's not that she's wrong and you're right. You've done some work that she hasn't, and until she does, you're going to continue getting barbed until she does the work. And you're like, hey, I love you, but from over here, because you want to barb me where you're at.
Yep.
And I'm not trying to barb you.
I'm not.
Right.
I've moved past all those things, and the door is open. The door is always open, but she has to move through her own barb to meet me where I'm at. We all have standards of communication, and we have to find those standards for ourselves, right? But it's not a means of protection. It's an invitation. The thing I have issues with boundaries on is it's the belief that we can be hurt or wounded. A soul can't be hurt or wounded. Only the mind can. But a standard is an invitation. Hey, I can meet you here. I know this because I know you're capable of this. And because I love you and I know that you're capable, this is where I will meet you. And I had to do that for my father. It actually created the strongest bond we ever had. My dad used to abuse me because I did that. I held that standard, and he was like, I didn't run away because he used to chase after me and hit me. And he was like, hold on a second. Like, his brain didn't know what to do. And when we do that and we hold that standard, it pulls them out of autopilot. And when you pull them out of autopilot, that moment of realization starts to occur. And because he loves me so much, despite the wounding, it created the deepest conversation. We're closer than ever. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case with my sister, but I'll take 50.
Yeah, I take 50%.
Yeah, I'll take 50%.
1 out of 2 ain't bad, right? Yeah. So with your sister, she obviously, from what you're saying, or at least it seems like it, she puts her power in the man in the sky.
Correct.
Okay, so she's given away her power.
Yeah,
believing...
she prays to him, waits for him, listens to, but sometimes she. And you know this all the time, Christians in general. Oh, I'm just waiting for God. I'm just waiting for God. I'm waiting for God. No. Okay, prayer is manifestation.
Exactly.
Prayer is,
Amen.
You need to take actions.
Amen.
To be able to create it.
Yeah, but first is your thoughts.
First are the thoughts.
Yeah.
And God, whoever you want to say, not the merit of the mind, but that intuitive knowing, the connection with God, source, whatever you want to call it, that is the thing you have to act upon. Right? You can't just sit there. It's not just going to be plopped in your lap. I love my mother, but she died because she did that. She was Christian. She said, I'm just going to wait for God to save me from cancer. And I was like, what? She said, I'm just going to wait for God. I was like, what?
Yeah.
And it ended up killing her.
Yeah. So you're when you're separated from yourself because you've outsourced your authority to the man in the sky. Mm-hmm. You're no longer in your authority at all. You have no paddles, you have no oars, you can't steer anything because you think that some man in the sky is in charge of all this. And let's just argue for a moment that maybe that could be the case.
Even then, we are created in his image.
Absolutely, but even if we go with their thinking,
yes,
it would be through people.
100%.
Right?
He's not going to come down and be like, no. I am here.
Right. It would be through the doctor. It would be through the doctor down in Mexico, you said.
Yes.
It'd be through the doctor that's doing things in Saudi Arabia.
Yep.
Yes, maybe God could create something.
100%.
You're going to have to do your part.
Correct. You are not sitting on your fucking sofa waiting for him to walk in the door.
And how many people are doing this right now, telling God to give him a Powerball ticket that's a winner?
Oh
I mean, it's like, dude, you know what, man? Your thoughts create
your reality.
If you're worth $1 million, then you've had $1 million thoughts. If you're worth $10, you had $10 thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So people don't understand that we are God. Mm-hmm. We are extensions of God. If God is the fire, we are the spark. We are part of it.
Literally, we are God's spark within the esoterics.
Yeah, absolutely. And so people don't understand that. And it's, again, like I said, our medical systems, our religious systems, our school systems, they set us up for failure. And really the work is what we're talking about here. What you're talking about, what you do for a living is the work.
Yep.
And people don't realize that. And you're out there trying to get people that are ready to take that next step. So in your experience, if somebody is disconnected from themselves, mm-hmm. if they are outsourcing their authority, if they are not feeling good, they're obviously coming to you for a reason. Mm-hmm. What do you think their first step is? What do you think their first step of action or thoughts is in order to make the initial change?
Learning how to self-parent themselves.
Learning how to parent themselves.
Yes.
Give me an example.
I had a client who came to me who had a very, very affluent lawyer firm business, but he was running around like at very low prices for a very long time, exhausted, 100 pounds overweight, burned out, didn't know what to do, had a baby on the way. And I forgot the conversation. It was, he didn't want to take drugs to be able to lose weight and get his testosterone back to normal. And we had a conversation. He realized that he was chasing self-worth. He was chasing things outside himself for that. And quite often that is something men, women in general can realize. I'm chasing this thing outside of myself. That is a moment of awareness that most people can pull to the forefront. And I showed him within his memories by my modality, disentanglement, that it was literally just something he hadn't given himself. And as soon as he saw that, he ran with it. He tripled his prices in his business, paid for the contract within a month, and he realized every single thing within his life that he'd been chasing was just that worth that his dad said he could only have when he had XYZ. And then he started to become, oh my goodness, maybe God's a little different than I thought. He still believes in God, but in a slightly different way. Mm-hmm. Right? And I think that a lot of people can realize those things, like the love, the worth, the acceptance. And that's typically like kind of my foot in the door is like, oh my God, I'm codependent. Holy shit, that's not good. Most people can admit that's not good. Right?
Yeah.
And then that gives the way to slowly instilling ownership. And when you start to have ownership, then they create more sense of self-autonomy, which builds that positive feedback loop to really change.
Right. But okay, so you're doing that, and that's great. And then you're going to address the physiology too. You're going to talk about gut health. You're going to talk about
in conjunction. Yes,
yeah,
all
gut
those things
health,
are put into
hormones,
place. Yes.
Belief systems, and all that. So here's my point. If somebody's all boogered up, they're all wadded up, and they're not doing well in life, and by the way, they're everywhere.
Everywhere.
There's no shortage.
Yep.
You and I could walk outside together, hop in my car, drive 5 minutes, and we'll pass 400 of them. They're everywhere.
Yep.
Okay, so they don't know where to start. So let's just play with what you just said. They're going to go to a medical doctor. They're going to get an antidepressant. Mm-hmm. They're going to go to their priest or their pastor, and they're going to pray and say, God, come down here and save this person, mm-hmm. right? And then they're going to go to their psychologist, and the psychologist is going to say, well, tell me how you feel about that, and come back next week and tell me how you feel about that,
again.
and tell me again, and tell me again.
Instead of, how can we change that?
Right.
How can we not have that occur again?
Right, and so you're doing... From what I see is you're giving people messages that aren't being given by the places that are supposed to give them.
No, because they keep them codependent. I'm about my clients becoming independent, autonomous. most of my clients are done within 6 to 9 months, and they never need me again. They know how to do things years and years later, and they're helping other people. I had one woman who was speaking for the city assembly. I checked in with her. She hasn't worked with me for 3 years, and she always says, "Thank you so much for the work we did together." Mm-hmm. She went through 10 years of failed therapy.
Yeah, and you know what I think that as screwed up as women are today, especially the younger generation,
yes.
it's awful. And by the way, a lot of women that are older don't understand what I mean whenever I say things about women today.
I've noticed some of the comments.
I mean modern women,
yes,
modern women. They are the most screwed up bunch of people possible. But I think I think where women really shine, I think, is whenever they do the work. I think when women do the real work like you have, I think you become wise. And I think that women are supposed to be wise guides. And I don't know everything about history about surrounding women, but I know that at one point through our evolution, men have been on top and men have been in control of women for a long time now. And it's shifting in an improper way. But at one point, women were wise guides, and
they were the matrons of society, because the men would go out and they'd hunt and gab, but they'd be gone on a kill for 2 to 3 weeks. The wise women had to take care of the women who were going through labor and the little ones. So actually, and this is another thing, another conversation, menopause has been demonized when it's actually a very valuable portion of human evolution, because those women are no longer in that hormonal yo-yo, so they're able to oversee the village while the men are out doing the really important things and protecting the village.
Yeah, I think that when you hit menopause, you're able to tap into your wisdom easier because
Yes.
you're not a slave to the emotions
Correct.
and to the hormones
Correct.
and to the seemingly the necessity. The seemingly pushed for need of security by any means.
Well, and that also
right?
goes to how our brains rewire. So our brains rewire 3 times in life, whereas men's only twice. So a young girl is like, she's pretty similar to little boys, right? Can play really rough. Then she goes into adolescence and her brain starts to go only for connection.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where women, when they say, oh, where do you want to eat? They're not being argumentative when they don't know where to eat. They're actually, that's just how their brain is primed. They want to be agreeable.
Mm-hmm.
But when we go into menopause, our brain starts to, again, the neurons start
More
to rewire.
disagreeable.
More individuation.
Individuation.
Yes.
But what I was going to say is that women that have done the work, I think, are invaluable. I think you're
100%.
invaluable.
Thank you.
I think Kate is invaluable.
Yep. Because we're connected to the intuitive senses.
Yeah.
We may be aware of the emotions, but we don't allow the emotions to dictate our choices.
Yeah, absolutely. And doing the work to give deliberate thought to things and to put into words what's really going on, because women typically are more facile, more communicative, and more they have a natural ability. I'm not saying that men can't, because obviously I can, but a lot of men can. But more women are driven for communication. And so once a woman has that wisdom and she can articulate it in a way that can help people, I think that's where women can find their power, but they're not socially rewarded to find the wisdom. They're socially rewarded to be anti-wisdom, to be feminist, to be anti-men, to be driven towards the putting down of men for the overall feminist gain. That's the modern woman. And they're so unwise. And it's walking us right into communism. It's walking us right into socialism. That's a whole other topic. Yeah. But I'm saying that I find women that have really done the work so incredibly valuable and powerful. And so on my socials, people think that I don't like women. I love women, but not all of them.
It's the wounded ones that are creating the most amount of noise and disconnection. And they say it's all the men's problem, but they don't take responsibility for the fact that they're pushing men into the state that they're in. And it's a constant finger pointing back and forth. I mean, yes, men need to rise up. Yes, men need to take responsibility. But you deciding to take everything away from him and demonizing him for actually speaking up. You say you want a masculine man, but he tries to speak up and then you vilify him for it? Like, this can't work.
Absolutely. And men have been vilified so hard. You know, Kate and I were talking about it. And somewhere around 30 years ago, like, let's just say you and I went back 30 years ago and I walked through a bar and I pinched your ass. You'd be like, hey, buddy.
Yes.
Come on now.
Yeah, now it's like, oh my God,
no,
sexual
you gotta
assault.
Call the cops.
Call the cops. Yep.
No, a physical, a report, physical assault.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, so the rules have changed.
Yep.
And, there's a reason that Playboy at one point was popular, like Hugh Hefner's Playboy.
Yeah.
By the way, it was classy, it was tasty, it wasn't XXX.
No.
It was actually a magazine, kind of like Men's Health, with some
women
imagery.
with bikinis and some lingerie.
Yeah, and there was nudity too, but there was nudity too. But I'm saying it was the minor part of the magazine. It was really a magazine this thick with 5 pages of nudity.
Yeah.
The rest of it was health and what's going on in the world and whatever. And so when Hugh Hefner died, that whole era died.
Yeah.
And now it's not about It's not about women being beautiful, because women want to be big and fat now and justify that that's the new beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's not about
Because of the lack of ownership.
a lack of ownership. It's not about men being men and women being women anymore. It's now the new way. And the new way, if that's what we're going to call it, is not working.
It's not. It's causing societal collapse.
Absolutely. And there's only two things in this world that makes the world, and that's a man and a woman. And if you don't have that part right, you're fucked.
Yep.
And this whole society is fucked right now.
Yep.
And the women blaming the men is not doing no good. But I think that men do need to rise up. But what's their reward for doing it? And women.
It's hard to find a woman that's actually able to stabilize herself and be autonomous. And I mean, to be fair, it's a shitty proposition for both sides. It really is. It goes, but that goes to letting go of expectation, right?
But where for sure, but what about having expectations? Where is it in the mental health books how to create, form, whatever you want to say, and sustain a healthy relationship while the man and woman are constantly addicted to their phone, while the woman is taking ass and tit pics for the world? Like, where is that in the handbook?
It's not.
We had it hard enough without that.
Yes.
And so the kids of the new generation are like, the boys, not men, the boys that are young, they're looking at it and saying, why would I do this?
Why would I even try?
I want to love her. I want to open her door for her. I want to feed her. I want to.
But she's going to judge me for opening the door.
There you go. Oh, you think you're.
You think I can't open the door?
Right. But then, yeah, right. So you're going to get demonized for opening a door or for being.
I literally had someone on a comment that I saw
chivalry is now chauvinism.
100%.
Right. So everything's all fucked up. But if a boy, like an 18, 19, 20-year-old boy, wants to love a woman and she's taking selfies 3 times a day and getting 400 hard-dicked, thirsty dudes
messaging her.
Why does he want to contend with that?
100%. Well, and it all goes back to the subject, which is doing our own work.
Yeah.
If we don't need validation outside of ourselves, then that stuff doesn't even, it's shallow. It has nothing behind it. There is no energy. There is no frequency. It's just another cheap dopamine hit, and you're conscious and aware of that. So if we do this inner work, then these distractions no longer have the hold that they did. But if you're still in the programming, you buy into the programming. You buy into the belief that's important. It's not. It means nothing.
Right. So that leads me to a good question. If we were able to, and we're not, but let's just say we were able to strip down everything, strip down all their programming, pull them out of the matrix, like yank them out of the matrix, rip down their programming, and they could restart. What do you think most people would find underneath all that programming if they really wanted to dig deep?
Think of a child. Like a childlike wonder of wanting to experience the world for what it is, without expectations, without just wanting to be loved. That's it. Wanting to be loved, give love before all the programming. Because children are so beautiful. They are a representation of our soul before we are programmed and traumatized and all those different things. Look at a child. If I ever am too much, like at a party or something, I'll go sit with the kids. I hang out with the kids. Because they have a beautiful way, and they don't care how they call us shit out all the time. It's so refreshing. So it'd be much more like a child, curious and just wanting to experience life fully and completely, dirty, messy, however it may be, without the judgment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, guys, there you have it. There is Arielle for you. Okay. And by the way, how would they find you?
I am active on Facebook. Arielle Ziegler, Arielle Zeigler.
Are you on Insta?
I am on Insta. Also, Arielle Ziegler 1 altogether.
Okay. Spell it again for them.
Arielle Zeigler, and then with a 1 on Instagram.
Arielle Ziegler 1 on Instagram. Guys, listen, this world that you live in, this world that I live in and with you, it is broken from the top down, okay? The systems, the institutions, the education, the medical, the psychological, the cultural, everything is broken. It's really not you, but it is how you respond to it. And that's an ownership that you must be willing to be ready for. And maybe you're not. But maybe something's wrong. Maybe you know something's wrong. Maybe you can't put your finger on it. Maybe you can't figure it out yourself, and maybe your peers and your friends don't have the answers. Maybe you don't want to talk to your peers and your family about your specific issues. Maybe you need somebody safe to do it with. But where do you turn to? Do you look at Google? Do you try to find somebody in a white coat to help you with your problems? Do you try to find some counselor that went to their indoctrinated school to teach you a certain way? Maybe you go to a psychologist and maybe they just have you repeat yourself countlessly, and it just keeps you in that state. Regardless, your friends, the institutions, the doctors, the psychologists, if it was working, guys, it would have already worked. The church is on every corner. If it worked, we would see it working. Listen, this world's on fire. It's in trouble. And it all has to do with love and fear and consciousness and doing the inner work. And if you want to do the inner work, I really suggest that you find Arielle online on Facebook or Instagram. Reach out to her. See if she can help you. Now, she's only one woman. She doesn't have a team around her. So maybe she doesn't have the time for you right now, but maybe she could schedule you out. If you really want the help, you need to reach out to somebody like this. And by the way, she might know somebody that can help you. Because there's a lot of people out there, you all, that are suffering. This world is in no shortage of suffering. But it comes down to our belief systems. It comes down to our thoughts, how we perceive the world, how we show up in the world, the stories we're telling ourselves, the narratives that we must keep alive no matter what. And oftentimes they're destroying our lives. They're not helping our lives. And you need somebody that's more holistic, somebody that can help you with not only the basics like your thoughts and how you're showing up in the world, but also your anatomy, your physiology, the spiritual side of things. And it's oftentimes hard to find somebody like that. So I encourage you to reach out to my friend Arielle. She's here for you, and I'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thank you.
So I do my podcast in a way to set you up